What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about some Central Washington University basketball. Before we get this underway, though, we have a lot of information, but I invite you to check out my Facebook, MySpace, and Twitter accounts. I'll put the links below. That's if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're watching this on MySpace or Facebook, I will put the link to my YouTube blog my YouTube vlog in the comment section in both accounts. So I invite you to check out my sports vlog and also my Wildcat coverage. The Central Washington University men's basketball team clinched a berth in the Great Northwest Athletic Conference tournament on the last day of the last game of the season, which was last Saturday against Western Oregon. The GNAC actually changed up the format of this tournament a little bit, and I bring that up because the women's team almost made the tournament. If they went by last year's format, they would have made it, but they changed it up. So unfortunately, the women's team did miss the tournament for the second year in a row. I actually was not aware that they changed the tournament until last Saturday when I read on wildcatsports.com that the Wildcats clinched the final seed. The men's team clinched the final seed. So some changes here and there. So basically how the tournament's going to go this year, instead of last year with being the top eight teams and having this playoff style format, and with teams traveling all over the place and with higher seeds hosting games and whatnot, the tournament will be held, both men's and women's tournaments will be held in Lacey, Washington, the home of St. Martin's University and the home of the Saints. The Saints unfortunately did not make the men's tournament. The men's team did not make it. They finished 2 games back behind Central, actually. And so it's going to be the top 6, and we're going to have the number 1 and 2 seeds have a bye, and then the number 3 seed take on the 6th seed, and the 4th seed take on the 5th seed in the first round. If that is not clear, go ahead and comment below, and I'll explain it in the written form. So, rounding out, here's how the men's basketball standings in the Great Northwest Athletic Conference finished out from the regular season. Number 1, you got Central's arch rival, Western Washington University. They had a conference record of 16-2 and an overall record of 25-4. Alaska Anchorage got the 2 seed. So those two teams, Alaska Anchorage and Western Washington, have the byes and will automatically play in the semifinals. Alaska Anchorage finished behind Western by a game with a conference record of 15-3. After that, in the 3rd seed, you got the Seattle Pacific University Falcons, 13-5 conference. Western Oregon and Montana State Billings, 4th and 5th in that order. Those are the 2 surprise teams this year. Western Oregon kind of hangs out in the middle of the GNAC, while Montana is in the lower third of the GNAC, and both those teams really, even though Central took care of Montana State twice, and they were able to beat Western Oregon once, those teams really came out of nowhere this year. So props to the Wolves and Yellow Jackets. Rounding out the tournament teams are the Central Washington Wildcats, an 8-10 conference record and a 14-12 overall record. The teams who did not make the tournament from 7th to 10th place: Northwest Nazarene, St. Martin's, Simon Fraser, and Alaska Fairbanks. So here is how the bracket is going to look like heading into this tournament. On Wednesday, Central Washington will play Seattle Pacific at 5:15. Then followed by that game will be the game against Montana State Billings versus Western Oregon. Which, if you're, like I said, if you're a GNAC fan, that's the game that you want to watch, because that's a game between 2 sleepers that I don't think a lot of people give a lot of credit to those 2 teams. So again, props to both of them. I might even watch that one if I get a chance. On Friday, the winner of the CWU SBU game will play the number 2 seed Alaska Anchorage, and the winner of the MSU WOU winner will play Western Washington. That's according to GNACsports.com. And then the championship game will be held on Saturday at 5:15 p.m. and it will be on television. So Wildcats win, so that way you can be on TV like you were last year. That was awesome. And again, all these games are taking place in Lacey, Washington, which, in case you're interested, is south of our state capital, Olympia. looking at the regional rankings. Now, remember how if you win this conference, you automatically get into the tournament. If not, you have to get an at-large bid. And in order to get an at-large bid, you have to be ranked 8th or above in a 10-team region poll. And if you want to know how hard the GNAC has been this year in men's basketball, well, the top 3 teams in the West in their regional poll are from the GNAC. Them being in this order: Western Washington, Alaska Anchorage, and Seattle Pacific. I would say all those teams pretty much are guaranteed to get into the tournament. Western Oregon is currently ranked 6th in the region, so I think they might be on the bubble. They're kind of a maybe. The one that is on the outside looking in at this point is Montana State Billings. They're ranked 10th in the region, and probably will either have to get to the championship or win the whole thing if they want to go into the NCAA Division II March Madness tournament. Central is not, unlike last year, is not ranked in the tournament, so they are playing for their tournament lives, like many teams at this time of year. So let's recap the men's team, the season. The season kind of got off to I would say about a good 500 start. Their non-conference season, they were ranked they were ranked at one point, and then they fell out of the rankings. I believe that's what happened. I could be wrong about that, but when I say that they got off to a 500 start, it seemed like for every good game they had a poor game. And that being said, they were able to take down a couple of top 25 teams. In November, they took down third-ranked BYU Hawaii in a tournament game by 1.78 to 77. And then in the Great Western Shootout in Las Vegas, Nevada, they took down the number 10 team, Rollins, which with a 88 to 80 victory. And then the conference season started, and it just seemed that the Wildcats couldn't really finish off opponents and finish off games. Like for example, I unfortunately missed the Western Washington game that was on television because of a stupid blackout. But my buddy Deshaun saw the end of that game, and Central was down. He told me Central was down something like 3, maybe 5 points with a couple minutes left to go, and then they just couldn't get a defensive stop, and they couldn't get a jumper. And it just seemed that was the case this season, just not having enough oomph to get over the hump to get a couple of wins. But that being said, their big victory was recent. Western Washington was against Western Washington in Ellensburg. They were able to avenge their loss on television and beat the Vikings, who at the time were ranked 10th in the nation, by a score of 89 to 82. And they are playing pretty decent now heading into this tournament. They're 3-1 in their last 4 games of the regular season. Took out Simon Fraser, which I know is kind of an opponent, but they took down Western Washington and Western Oregon, two teams that are pretty solid this year. So I'm hoping that gives them the men's team momentum into the conference tournament. Central has been led by this season by Lacey Haddock. He averages 16 points a game, and Kevin Davis and Jody Johnson average 12.4 and 12 points a game, respectively. Jody Johnson leads the team in terms of rebounds. He averages 8.2 rebounds a game. Kevin Davis averages 7.6, and Robbie Clyde averages 5.2 rebounds a game. Okay, so now since you know about Central and a little bit about the tournament, let's look at their opponent, the Seattle Pacific University Falcons. We'll go into how they've made me feel the last few years later. But SPU is led by David Downs and Andy Poling, P-O-L-I-N-G. Both of them average over 15 points a game. Downs averages 15.4, and Poling averages 15.1. Joby Wall rounds out the scoring threat with 11.7 points a game. For rebounds, the SBU Falcons have 4 main rebound players. Andy Poling and Joby Wall average 5.7 rebounds a game. David Downs and Riley Stockton average 3.9 rebounds a game. These two teams met twice, like as in many other conferences around the country. And in the first game, it was in Ellensburg, Washington, where the Falcons came in and they went about their business with a 76-49 victory over Central. Downs had 20 points, Pauling had 16 points, and Corey Hudson added 13 for SBU. Jake Anderson for SBU had 7 rebounds. For Central, they were led by Kobe Jordan with 15 points, and Jody Johnson had 5 rebounds to lead the team. Game 2 was in Seattle in the Royal Brome Royal Brome Pavilion, and still to this day, I think that's one of the most hostile environments in the Great Northwest Athletic Conference. I was actually attempted to go to this game, and unfortunately things just fell through, and I didn't end up going. But if I did go, I would have seen Seattle Pacific defeat the Wildcats by 8 points, 72-64. So a little bit of improvement in terms of compared to the first game when the Wildcats were blown out. They only lost by 8 this time. For Central, they were led by Lacey Haddock, 18 points, Jody Johnson, 15 points, Robbie Clyde, 13 points, and Jody Johnson added 7 rebounds. Now, here is the thing about SBU that this really does kill Wildcat fans. SBU has been a thorn in Central's side in the postseason this last decade. When I first started going to Central, Central could take care of SBU. I mean, granted, it wasn't easy. But they were able to defeat SBU on more than one occasion. They had a good regular season streak going against the Falcons, but in the postseason, it's a completely different story. SBU has bounced Central from the postseason 3 times this last decade. The first time that I think it was either 2005 or 2006. I can't remember which one. I just know that SBU was hosting the tournament that year, and Central had a really low seed, and the Falcons just blew the Wildcats out. Then you look at 2008. The Wildcats had a game up in Alaska Anchorage in the NCAA tournament, and SBU won by 1 point in overtime. And then, of course, you had last year when I was really excited and I was riding high. And a lot of Wildcat fans were riding high, thinking we got the #1 seed and we're hosting tournament games. This is awesome. SBU, the 8th seed, comes in and sneaks up on the Wildcats and beats them in the first round. So this is not going to be an easy game. This is not going to be an easy game at all. Therefore, I'm really nervous. And I would love to have my Wildcats win. Obviously the expectations this year is to repeat as conference champions, but if they lose and they're one and done, frankly, as much as I hate to say it, I would not be surprised because SBU has handled us and has a history of handling us very well in the postseason. So, again, the game will be at 5:15 on Wednesday in Lacey, Washington. I'm going to do my best to try and listen to the game online, or watch the game online. It just depends on my work schedule. But either way, you can expect a recap on all the websites that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. I'll mention them again a little bit later, but you can expect that. And let's go Cats. Let's go for another championship. And it'd be nice to kind of go a little further and play Alaska Anchorage. But got to get through SBU first. A very tough SBU team. All right, so that will do it for the preview of the conference tournaments and this game between Central and SBU. Again, I invite you to check out my social websites, that being YouTube, Facebook, MySpace, and Twitter. Depending on where you've watched this video, I will put the links below in the comment sections of all the accounts. So thanks very much for watching, and finally, go Wildcats.